So, the ARX Combat Jumpstart Alliance Chieftain is on sale right now for 14,025 ARX, until Monday to celebrate 6 months since humanity's victory in the Battle of Sol. That's a 45% discount, so naturally some people are going to buy it because of that, and I would know because I did. Personally, the way I was looking at this was as a 75 ARX discount on the Alliance Chieftain ship kit, which I already wanted for ships that I already own, with a paint job and an entirely new Alliance Chieftain hull thrown in for good measure. However, if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you've either just bought this ship or are considering buying this ship because you intend to actually fly it, presumably in AX combat against Thyroid interceptors, and that you also don't know a lot about how to build an AX ship, or you'd already be flying one. This ship has a couple of redeeming qualities, but primarily, it has problems, some of which have been induced by the current state of the game, and some of which it's always had since it was introduced, so I thought I would take the opportunity to go over some of them and how to fix them, given that I too am currently in the process of fixing them, trying to make this ship useful. This ship's a bit of a turd. I struggled killing anything harder than the Cyclops in it, as standard, but it is a turd that you can polish into gold. Before we start off, I figured I would explain who the fuck I am and why you should listen to anything I have to say. I'm Wing Commander Bob. I've been a member of the AXI Discord server on and off for about 5 years now, and I would consider myself to be a reasonably competent AX pilot. Others may disagree there. I certainly haven't done every challenge there is to do, or flown every ship there is to fly, but you can take a look at some of my past videos to see some of the stuff I have done, and judge that yourself if you like. Crucially, I flew a Chieftain for all of my first solo kills of each interceptor type, so I think I know the ship fairly well, and I was there when the build that is now agreed to be the AX Meta Chieftain was agreed upon as the meta, and had already been flying it for a while, because if you understand AX build theory, it's not very hard to come up with it independently, and I'm going to go over some of that in this video. So, the beginning. What we're looking at here is the ARX Chieftain, imported into Elite Dangerous Shipyard, more commonly called EDC. This is an online tool that allows you to design ships in Elite Dangerous before you actually build them in-game, and then you can share those builds with people via a short link there. You might be familiar with Coriolis. EDC is pretty similar. The UI is slightly less intuitive, but more information dense. There's a couple features it has which Coriolis doesn't, and vice versa. It's got better support for new ships, and also better support for new modules, especially double-engineered modules, or pre-engineered modules, like the modified Guardian weapons. So, you will see it very commonly used in AX. Anyway, onto the ship itself, and we'll start with a couple things that are actually good about it. So, the big thing is this ship has zero rebuy cost. You can blow it up as many times as you like, and you never have to pay anything. The reason this is the case is because every module on the ship, as well as its hull, have a zero credit cost as far as the game is concerned. When your rebuy is calculated, it's 5% of the credits you paid for the ship. You didn't pay any credits for the ship, so there's no rebuy. What this means is if we install a module, our rebuy gets increased to 5% the cost of any modules we install. FDev actually chose a fairly good set of core modules, which are all of the expensive parts, aside from one. So that means we can actually build a very good Chieftain with this ship, and it will have an extraordinarily low rebuy cost once we're done. That is actually surprisingly useful in AX, even if you're fairly skilled at it. You can load premium ammo using synthesis into Guardian weapons, and using that in Thyroid combat is not uncommon. If you die, as long as you still had one round left of your premium ammo, when you respawn it is restocked to full. And if your rebuy cost is like 500,000 credits, that's much cheaper than the materials you would normally spend on synthesizing a set of ammo. To me at least, that's the big draw of this ship. The other things you get are a set of grade 5 dirty drag drives thrusters, 6As, which is great because that's exactly what you want, and thrusters are the most important engineering in an AX ship. And you also get 2 small Guardian Gauss cannons, which bypasses the need to unlock them, though just because you have 2 of them on the ship doesn't mean you actually have unlocked them. You can't put these in anything else because it's a pre-built ship. And this also has the benefit of having the anti-Guardian Zone resistance engineering effect applied to them. The fields that destroyed Guardian modules were very common during the recent Thargoid War. They're much less so these days. You can still find them when a Thargoid hunter will spawn them in a Titan debris cloud or the anti-Xeno conflict zones in the California Nebula. So it's nice to have, it's not essential. The big thing is that the materials to apply this effect only dropped from live Thargoid Titans, and there currently are none, so this is essentially unobtainable if you didn't stockpile materials beforehand. That last comment links into the first set of modifications that we're going to make, getting rid of the stuff that's no longer relevant because of changes to the game, and replacing it. When this ship was released, there was a Thargoid war going on. There were Thargoid Titans for you to go attack. Titan combat had specific equipment requirements, so FDev tried to make this ship suitable for it by including that equipment. They failed, but it doesn't really matter to us because there's no Titans anyway, so we're just going to junk it. With that in mind, Guardian Nanite Torpedo Pylon. This was used for striking the heat vents on the Titans. No Titans, so it's gone. Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer was used for entering the clouds around the Titans. The Titan wrecks to the left don't have those clouds. It's gone. The Caustic Sync Launcher was used because the Titan clouds had unavoidable caustic effects, which this would protect you from. There are caustic effects in the rest of AX, but they're generally pretty avoidable, and you can just burn it off by overheating your ship should you get it, so we don't really need it. The Research Limpet Controller was used for extracting tissue samples from Thargoids, and commonly used on Titans during the war for community goals and such. Those are long over, so we're not going to need that anymore. Somewhat entertainingly to me, tissue samples from Thargoids are corrosive cargo. This cargo rack is just a regular cargo rack, it's not a corrosion resistant rack. So if you picked stuff up with it, it would melt out your cargo hatch and you would lose the cargo. I don't really know why they bothered, but there you go. Next is the stuff that FDev chose incorrectly because they don't actually understand how their own game works. We have a Class 1 Repair Limpet Controller. The problem with this is that the only thing that dictates how much a Repair Limpet Controller repairs you by is the size of the controller. So we can see here that a 1A repairs you by 60 HP, same as a 1D or a 1C or a 1B or whatever. A 5D will repair you by 310, which is why we're going to use one of those in a minute. So that's going to go. Next, this ship has a shield. Shields in AX combat, at least as far as mediums are concerned, are usually not used. We tend to avoid damage rather than tank it, and a shield makes your hitbox bigger, so that's harder to do. In addition, the Thargon Swarm that the Interceptors will release will do vastly more damage to your hull through a shield than they will to hull directly, because phasing damage ignores both armor hardness and damage fall off. And lastly, it's 227 megajoules because it's unengineered and the ship has no shield boosters, which is so pitifully low it won't really protect you from anything before it goes down anyway, so we're just going to remove it. Now, we have a bunch of empty slots freed up by this, so we're just going to put in some modules which are actually useful. We have a remote release flak launcher. This allows you to destroy the Thargon Swarm. Very useful in solo fights, especially when you're starting out. Less relevant in wings, but can still come in handy, and is a lot more useful than anything else you can put on this hardpoint, so we're just going to go with it. As I said, we prefer to evade damage rather than tank it. Being cold helps you evade damage very well, so we want as many heatsink launchers as possible. Our empty optional internals, because we're now shieldless, any damage we take to our hull has a fairly good chance of damaging an internal module. So I'm going to bring some module reinforcements. The way that these module reinforcements work is each package provides a 60% damage protection, provided it's derated, and this damage protection percentage stacks. So right now we have 3 module reinforcements, so it's 94%. If you multiply out 0.6 by 3 times, that's the number that you'll get, 0.94. Normally, the damage that is taken to modules by enemy weapons fire is directed to the largest module reinforcement package. However, right now our largest module reinforcement package is in a military slot, and module reinforcement packages in military slots take damage last. So that's going to go too, and we're going to want to put one in our regular optional internals. And I'm going to do a class 5, which is a bit stronger than the class 4 we had before. Then we're going to replace the empty class 4 slot with a hull reinforcement package, and fill in our last empty slot with a class 5 repair limping controller. There is one last option. You can bring an SCO FSD. This isn't like actually necessary for combat, it's just nice to have. I don't really know why the ship didn't include one to begin with, but FDev. So once you've bought all of these modules, and I suggest you buy them in a station controlled by the Li Yongri powerplay faction, as that discounts them all by 15%, you'll have spent somewhere between 900,000 and 6 million credits to get a ship that is much more combat capable than it was at the start of this video, and rather than struggling to kill a Cyclops, that will easily kill a Basilisk, as I can now demonstrate. With all that being said, we've still got a long way to go. We have another set of upgrades to do, which makes your ship even more combat effective than it already was from the last one. However, these ones require a little bit of grind. I have limited it just to engineering effects you can get from Felicity Farset and the Dweller, which are usually the first two engineers people unlock, plus stuff that you can get from tech brokers. The first is a couple Guardian modules. We've got a Class 5 Guardian module reinforcement package, and the 2 medium Guardian Gauss cannons. You'll need to go out to the Guardian ruins for the items to unlock these. If you've never done that, please go do it. There's a whole selection of stuff that you can get out there. These are just the modules important to us. There's other stuff like the Guardian FSD booster, the size 1 Gauss, which you'll probably want to use if you ever build another AX ship. I won't go into detail on how to do that. Other YouTubers such as Exegius have made much better videos on it than I can, so I'll just stick some links in the description if I remember. On to the engineering effects. The big one is our power distributor. This is charge enhanced super conduits. This is essentially non-negotiable if you're also doing the weapons, because the weapons increase the draw on your weapons distributor capacitor by so much that you need this in order to stay effective. The other one is the beam laser G3 long range thermal vent. Luckily the Dweller also does beam lasers as well as power distributors to this grade. This helps you stay cold whenever you're in range. You can just shoot at the Thargoid and it will do a little bit of damage to a shield if the Thargoid currently has one up, and basically nothing to the hull. But the heat will be vented from your ship. The way thermal vent works is whatever number it says on the stat card for thermal load is the amount of heat that is reduced from your ship when you are striking a target. Other stuff that's still kind of important but less so, our heatsink launchers, I've replaced them with serious heatsinks. These are tech broker modules. You need materials for every one that you buy. However, this saves you having to go unlock the heatsink engineer, and you get 2 extra reserve heatsinks per launcher. So instead of having 9 total, you now have 15. Given how important staying cold is, that extends the amount of time you can stay cold under heatsink cover significantly, so, you know, very important. Also, you can put increased range on your FSD if you'd like. This is kind of to taste. It doesn't really matter for combat, it's just handy. And you're going to want grade 1 armoured thermal spread in order to power everything with the Guardian module reinforcement package. I've also set the power priorities for this ship because, as it is right now, it's using 101.4% of the total power. However, the cargo hatch is essentially irrelevant, so I've just put it on priority 5. It will disable whenever you deploy your weapons. And yeah, this ship, once you've finished doing the upgrades to it, is in the hands of a good pilot perfectly capable of killing a Hydra. If you were to show up to an AXI event with this ship, like Finance Friday, you'd probably be one of the better fitted ships there, and you'd be able to keep up to the fight very easily. There is still room to move with this, obviously. As you work through other engineers, you'll want to take your beam laser all the way to grade 5, upgrade your hull, heavy duty deep plating on the armour and the hull reinforcement packages, which will get your HP up to 32,000 or 3,270. And yeah, if you want more Guardian module reinforcement packages on your size 1s and 2s, you'll need to upgrade your power plant. Eventually you may end up with a build that looks a lot like this. This is the classic AX Meta Chieftain build. However, if you got here by upgrading an ARX Chieftain, instead of costing 81 million, it will be about 10. And instead of having a 4 million rebuy, it will be about 450,000. Realistically, this is the only AX ship you need to do progression. Obviously, if you want to do challenge ranks in AXI, some of those need specific builds in order to be valid. I don't really know how much longer this video will be relevant for. Obviously, the sale on the ship ends on Monday, but I'm kind of assuming that because this ship was intended for Titan combat, and there isn't any anymore, nor will there be any for the foreseeable, it'll get pulled from the store at some point, like the Crate Mark II AX Jumpstart was. Hopefully, even if the ship is long gone, it helps you a bit with understanding why AX builds are the way that they are. If you've got any questions about stuff that was in this video, feel free to leave them in the comments, or come into the AXI Discord and ping me to ask me directly. That's all from me. I might make more videos like this in the future, given that I had to learn some basic editing for the This Is My Elite Dangerous challenge, but we'll see how this one does. Yeah, thank you and goodbye.